A genealogy journey is littered with fascinating bits of information along the way, and when you're researching, it can be difficult to fight the urge to just take off in any direction each time you uncover a compelling clue. Anyone who has done genealogy is familiar with the temptation of traipsing down what we lovingly refer to as rabbit holes, only to find ourselves bewildered when we come up for air some hours later after being eyeballs deep in records, dazed and wondering where the time went, minds spinning with all of the information we just discovered. And hey, I'm not here to say that that's the wrong way, but writing research plans has given me clarity. They've saved me time and made me more efficient and productive. I get more bang for my research buck. By spending my research time more wisely and focused, my research has become more accurate, organized, and manageable. So it might sound like the more boring approach, but trust me when I say it has many benefits, better results, and dare I say it, a better overall research experience. When I first started my own genealogy research about 20 years ago, I loved the simplicity of logging into Ancestry and clicking on the hint that interested me the most. Often I wouldn't have a goal or a focus in mind aside from just learning more about my ancestors and building my family tree at random. So I would find myself record hopping and switching back and forth between generations and families. Sometimes I would research so much in so many different areas of my tree in one sitting that I would forget certain discoveries I'd made by the end of my session. I would research until I felt burnt out and I had to take a break, often forgetting some of the places that I'd searched and where I'd left off on each branch. I would end up repeating research or backtracking because I didn't have a clear direction and I wasn't logging my research like I should. It wasn't until I took some genealogy courses and began working professionally with clients that I realized how much more efficient it was to always approach my research with a specific question in mind and to then create a research plan for that question. There are 3 basic elements to a genealogy research plan, and each plan should start with number 1, your research question. I talked about how to formulate your research question in my last video, but essentially your question should have a concise research objective based on an individual couple or group that has been identified by known distinguishable facts. For example, who is the father of Fiona Baggins, born at the 10th of July, 1907? Number 2 is background information. This is all of the information you know about the individual, couple, or group that is the subject of your research question. Any dates, locations, relationships, events, or situations that you're aware of should be detailed here. This can include family lore, but be sure to note it as such. Any piece of information that's not been validated by documentation should only be considered as a clue, not fact. Number 3 is the meat of the plan, the third element, the research strategy. The strategy will detail what sources you plan to search, how you plan to access them, and a general order. So you'll need to research what records are available for the time period and location relevant to your research question. This might seem like a daunting task when you're just beginning and you're not sure how to find that kind of information, but a little pro tip, a great resource for learning what records are available for a particular time and place is FamilySearch.org's Research Wiki. You simply log into Family Search, pull up the Research Wiki page, and type the applicable location or time period for your research question in this little box right up here, and then click Submit to get these results. I'll do a more detailed video on all the ways you can use this great genealogy resource, but I wanted you to know that it's there so you can start playing around with it if you haven't already, and start learning about what sources are available and how they might be useful to your research. If you have a hypothesis for your research question that you'd like to note in your plan, or an explanation of why you've chosen to begin your research where you have, or order your research in a particular way, include that information here in the strategy section. So continuing with our research question for Fiona as an example, and determining who her father was, some of the records that we could include in the strategy here are Fiona's death certificate in San Francisco County, California, the census records for 1910 and 1920, California marriage records, possibly a birth record if the location where she was born is discovered during research. Each of these records could potentially name the father of Fiona. While some of these records can be found in an online database or ordered online, sometimes you'll need to go to a repository to conduct your research on site in person to access the records. If that's the case, make sure you've researched the facility thoroughly so you understand any rules, regulations, or guidelines they share about how to access their collection. You might need to schedule an appointment to be granted access, and you'll want to detail all of this in your research plan so you'll be prepared for that. When you're first starting out researching, the amount and variation of record collections and where to access them can seem overwhelming, and you might wonder which records are the best to begin with. This, of course, will depend on your research question, but some good record sets to start with are often census records and vital records. Vital records are birth, marriage, and death records. I'll be getting more into detail about each of these record sets, offering analysis and historical context with tips and tricks on how to locate and search each of them. And I'll be back with a new video on Wednesday, so until then, happy researching.